Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a special Morning Dew edition of the Dew Dissidents podcast. My name's Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobler, of course.
Hello.
First Morning Dew in a couple weeks. We were off last Thursday morning. It was 1 week ago that crazy long weekend began. So it has been a couple weeks since we got up early with all of you.
Which not coincidentally coincided with rioting in London.
That's right. That's right. But we are here. We made it. Let's get a little Dolly Parton going. Where is the Dolly Parton? I don't even know where the Dolly Parton is on this thing. I don't know how you keep track of this. It's so many sound
I have a
drops.
system. I go through and purge every now and then, but we're kind of down to the good ones now.
Tumbled out of bed and stumbled to the kitchen, pour myself a cup of ambition.
There we go.
Things that are for like one-time bits, we'll never use it again. I'll try to take it out right after.
Yeah. I put the Rappaport thing toward the top. That we get a lot of use of, obviously. The go get your shine box, the where do you get the balls, those I keep handy. Everything else we kind of use as we need. But yes, this is our first morning show in a while. So please hit that like button. Let everybody know we're here. Please hit that subscribe button. Smash that like button in the morning. Let's juice this algorithm this morning here. Get some people in here. 402 strong in the YouTube chat to start things off. 416 in the Rumble chat to start things off. So thanks everybody for being here early with us on this Thursday morning. 3 shows in a row. We are off until Sunday when we do have Brianna Joy Gray slated as of now for Sunday evening. So that's going to be a huge show this Sunday. You're not going to want to miss that one. That'll be at our regular time, 7 p.m. on Father's Day. So all of the dissident dads will get to tune in for a special Father's Day episode. We got some stuff to get to today, though, so why don't we jump right in? This was news that broke yesterday late afternoon in the hotly contested New York 16th primary between Jamaal Bowman and AIPAC-funded challenger George Latimer. We had a big unexpected development. Unexpected. I say unexpected because what did we hear back when we were progressive Democrats, insurgent Democrats, troublemaker Democrats? We heard that we were dividing the party by challenging incumbents, right? We're being divisive. We can't have this division going into campaign season. You have to leave our incumbents alone. Our incumbents are our base of strength. Well, Hillary Clinton comes out yesterday afternoon and endorses Jamaal Bowman, right? Oh, no. With Trump on the ballot, we need strong, principled Democrats in Congress more than ever. In Congress, Latimer for NY will protect abortion rights, stand up to the NRA, and fight for President Biden's agenda, just like he's always done. Make a plan to vote by June 25th. So that's right. Hillary Clinton endorses...
Jane, you ignorant slut.
Yeah. Hillary Clinton endorses George Latimer in challenge to unseat Jamaal Bowman. Hillary Clinton helped deal another blow to vulnerable Representative Jamaal Bowman on Wednesday, endorsing his formidable challenger just hours after Bowman yet again accused him of racism. Clinton's is one of the highest profile nods in the primary, which has grown increasingly vitriolic as Westchester County Executive George Latimer gains ground against the incumbent member of the squad. Among Bowman's big-name supporters are Senators Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. Now, when they say he's been gaining ground, the polls that I've seen have had Latimer winning pretty big. Now, those were biased polls, to be fair. They were funded by a pro-Latimer PAC. However, they were Latimer plus 17. I don't think even a biased poll gets you. There's not a 17-point margin of error in even a biased poll, right? Let's say it's a 10-point margin of error. That still has Latimer up. And so right now, smart money is that Bowman is going to lose. And this endorsement pulls a lot of weight everywhere, especially in Westchester. This is the shit lib capital of America right here. I mean, if there's any place where Hillary Clinton's endorsement pulls weight, it's going to be here. Clinton's backing.
It was funny when Tusker was here. She actually said, "Okay, now I understand why you cover culture the way that you do, because it's everywhere here."
Yeah, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. It's on the bus. We were at the New York Public Library, the main branch with the Lions, and you got a big, Pride Month sign outside with the flag, whatever the hell it represents at this point. I don't think even people who fly it know anymore. And it said, "Reading is for everyone." And we both laughed. Oh yeah, that's a brave stance with all the people trying to stop gay people from reading
books.
That's a bit. goddamn queers and they're reading.
Right.
Gay people, why do they have so many damn books? They're reading all the time.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, defiantly, reading is for everyone. When has that ever been an issue? Nobody ever said, Mr. Wild, we need to confiscate your library, sir.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what are you talking about? So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's part of it. Maybe if I live, because you always say that. You always say where you live.
No one cares.
This doesn't really come up. Nobody cares. I live in New York.
Yeah.
I live in New York where Latimer is beating Bowman by 17 points.
And Hillary actually lives in Westchester.
In the middle of a genocide.
Exactly, yeah, in the middle of a genocide. I don't know if Hillary lives in the 16th. I don't know what district Chappaqua is in, but I know she lives in Westchester County. Westchester County's split. She might be one district north. I'm not sure. But she definitely lives in Westchester, so she is of the area. And yes, Latimer's winning now with her endorsement. So her backing came shortly after Bowman leveled harsh criticism of Latimer at an unrelated event Wednesday in suburban Mount Vernon. He's in the pocket of Republican billionaires who are racist, the incumbent said, pardon me. He is also not just anti-black racist, he's an anti-Muslim racist. Clinton's reference to supporting Biden's vision for the country tracks with the Latimer coalition's messaging. His coalition has been highlighting, this is amazing, highlighting Bowman's vote against the bipartisan infrastructure plan that Biden had championed. Bowman has noted his vote wasn't critical to the passage of the law and he wanted to advocate for social spending. So Bowman obviously idiotically playing defense on that, but that's amazing. His coalition has been highlighting Bowman's vote against the bipartisan infrastructure plan that Biden had championed. This is why I say this is the shit lib capital of the world. This is Westchester. These people are filthy fucking rich. They need an infrastructure plan like I need a testicle transplant. Like they don't need the infrastructure plan. Okay, it's amazing. That is just
Methinks
a way.
Thou dost protest too much, my friend.
Well, the reason I said that is because we're expecting a baby in a few months. I figured I could get away with that one, right?
Yeah, but didn't she make you take them off after, after
yeah,
the
right,
third
exactly.
one?
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, yeah, no, those things are still kicking. But this is what I mean. Like, they don't need an infrastructure plan. This is just a way to suck up to Biden. You voted against the infrastructure plan. The people of fucking Westchester, in Tarrytown, in Scarsdale, they need a bipartisan infrastructure plan. They're just such suck-ups. They're just they are just such mindless libs. That infrastructure plan is just about loyalty to Biden. That's all that is. The people in this district do not care about the infrastructure plan whatsoever. They'd have no need for it. Bowman is battling for a third term against a well-known local leader in a primary that will test Democratic sentiment on the Israel-Hamas war. Oh yeah, that. Latimer, who is benefiting from a multi-million-dollar support campaign by pro-Israel AIPAC, has said Bowman's criticism of the Jewish state stands in stark contrast to mainstream Democrats. In a statement responding to Clinton's endorsement, Latimer said, "Her voice gives even more momentum to our grassroots campaign." I love that. Grassroots campaign. That's good for one of these. Which keeps gaining strength because we stand strongly and honestly for our values and for our belief in delivering meaningful results for the communities we serve. His campaign's announcement of Clinton support came ahead of the first day of early voting in the primary and was accompanied by a list of local leaders and labor groups now supporting him. So, Jamal Bowman, if you have been paying attention to that article, and if you've been following him on Twitter, which I trust you all are, he's been running against MAGA Republicans this whole time, despite the fact that he is being primaried from within his own party and losing amongst voters who are Democrats. New York is not only a closed primary state, it's one of the most draconian closed primary states. It's extremely difficult to switch over and vote for a Democrat. You'd have had to do so 4 months ago on Valentine's Day. So he keeps tweeting over and over again, despite the fact that he's getting his ass handed to him by a Democrat amongst Democratic voters. We're fighting back against AIPAC and their MAGA billionaires. Keeps tweeting over and over again. We're fighting back against AIPAC and their MAGA billionaires. MAGA billionaires. And here's a video.
Democrats are not in the pocket of AIPAC. This is all MAGA. Look, you just reelect me one more term, and I'm eligible for the lifetime pension. That's all we're working for here.
Is that what it is? Is it 2 terms? I think it is 2 terms.
I think you got to do at least 2 terms, and then you get.
Well, I think he has done 2 terms, right?
Has he done 2?
2022. All right, so he's good. So what does he got to worry about?
Oh, so
That's probably why
he already has his lifetime pension. What does he
that's
need
probably
this
why he's in such a good mood. Because he seems pretty
Probably.
happy in this video that I'm about to show you, even though he's losing. Okay, so he puts out this video 2 weeks ago, right? And he's put out several videos like this. But here is Jamaal Bowman categorizing this primary, a Democratic primary, where only Democratic voters can vote. MAGA Republicans cannot vote in this primary. MAGA Republicans could not defeat him if they wanted to at the ballot box. Is it true that there are probably some rich Republicans who know that a Republican has no chance in the district and so they're donating to Latimer? Sure, but they can't vote against you. The vote is still in the hands of Democrats. And all the endorsements for Latimer here, all the notable endorsements are coming from Democrats like Hillary Clinton. But here he is 2 weeks ago framing this race as pro-Biden Democrat that he is against MAGA Republicans.
Y'all's Congressman Jamaal Bowman here. AIPAC and their racist Republican billionaire donors have spent more money in our race against me than they have ever spent in U.S. history. Why? Because we are fighting for peace, justice, equality, and humanity for all people. And they are simply focused on maintaining power. That's why they tried to overturn the election results in 2020. That's why they're going after our voting rights, our reproductive rights, affirmative action, and so much more. Why are MAGA Trump Republicans looking to buy this congressional seat?
I'm sorry, you can't make stupid like this up. You're losing in a Democratic primary among Democratic voters, and here you are framing this as about voting rights, abortion rights. Latimer is pro-choice. Latimer is with you on all of like the broad mainstream Democratic issues. He's running as a Zionist in a Zionist district. And if you notice, Bowman's not highlighting that here. You know why he's not highlighting that here? Because he knows his district is full of rich Zionists. And he knows that he's in the minority in his own turf on this issue. So he has to frame this as, well, this is about Democrats versus Republicans, even though he's losing to a Democrat amongst Democratic voters.
Why are they doing
that? This is what's really going on behind the scenes. Now, Bowman is legitimately stupid. He's legitimately stupid. Most of these people are not quite as stupid as Bowman. But he's smart enough to know what he can't say if he wants to be able to make that phone call after he gets voted out. Listen, any of those sweet corporate board seats available, any of those lobbyist slots available, you want to get hooked up post-politics career, you can't, everything that he's saying, if he said it about the Democrats, if he said they're in the pocket of AIPAC and AIPAC's trying to buy this election, the Democratic Party is owned by AIPAC, he would do a lot better. I can't say that he would win in that district, but he'd do a lot better because you would actually be speaking to a constituency that actually exists.
Right.
What would we be saying? We'd be like, wow, look at Bowman. He said, fuck it, decided to tell the truth, right? Be getting positive coverage from the kind of people who would actually decide to vote against Hillary Clinton's wishes, that is not most people in a Democratic primary. That's why we don't fuck with the Democratic Party anymore. All Hillary Clinton has to do is put out a tweet. That's it.
Exactly.
Even if this had been a contest, it's over. It's over. The queen of the shit libs has spoken, and the Democrats in the primaries are just going to vote the way that she says. All your work, all your door knocking, all your pamphleteering, out the window with a word. Out the window with a word from one of the most loathsome people in the country. So why not just attack your own party because he wants those jobs afterwards. You know, once you burn those people, they have a very long memory. Look at Elizabeth Warren.
Right.
Look at Elizabeth Warren.
Even in progressive circles, there's certain places you can't go. For the progressive PACs, you know, the Our Revolutions, the places like that, right?
They never gave her a cabinet job. She bent the knee. She humiliated herself. Never let Elizabeth Warren into the Treasury. Nothing.
Exactly. Here we go.
Because we work with the people and for the people. And we stand up for fully funding our public schools, climate justice, housing is a human right, affordable housing, affordable childcare, bringing down utility costs, and everything that the government is supposed to stand for and represent, which is the people. We cannot let them come in and buy this election. We decide the future of our district. We decide the future of our country. We decide the future of our democracy. So peace and love to you all. Election day is June 25th. Early voting is June 15th. Make sure you come out in record numbers. We made history in 2020. We broke records in 2020. Now we're going to make history and break records again in 2024. Peace and love, y'all. If this democracy doesn't work for everyone, it doesn't work for anyone. Peace.
So he frames this, obviously, as a battle between Democrats and Republicans, and how he's a loyal Democrat because he stands for reproductive justice, climate justice, housing, schools. He runs down the whole laundry list of standard, blue policy stances, thinking, okay, I have to frame this as a battle between me, the loyal team-playing Democrat, and Republicans who are funding this Democrat in name only, right? He's trying to position himself in the race as the real loyal Democrat. And instead of saying AIPAC owns Democrats just as much as it owns the GOP, and my adversary in this race is a genocide-supporting piece of garbage. That's what he could have said if he invited me to, if I were his surrogate, that's what I'd be saying, right? So he does all that sucking up, right? He says, no, I'm going to run as a loyal Democrat, and what reward does he get for it? Hillary Clinton, arbiter of who's a loyal Democrat and who's not, apparently, goes ahead and stabs him in the back and endorses his opponent anyway, because they obviously care nothing about party loyalty. They care nothing about the party at all. The party is just a vehicle for their interests. And that's been so obvious to so many of us for so long. Jamal Bowman just learned that yesterday, maybe. Maybe he learned that yesterday. Oh, wow, look at that. I decided to run this race by sucking up to my party and painting George Latimer as a Republican in Democrat outfit. And look at the reward. Look at the reward. Hillary endorses him anyway. You know why? Because Hillary's pro-AIPAC and he's pro-AIPAC. And it's as simple as that. All this sucking up gets you fucking nowhere.
And this is also why you never see, if we had a real left progressive movement legitimately trying to take over the Democratic Party, the vision we had after the Sanders campaign, all these people would put front and center the threat. If I ever get primaried and lose, I'm running as an independent.
Exactly, yes.
They don't put that out there because there's life after getting voted out as long as you play ball, right? You don't go certain places and they'll get you a nice cushy job when you're out of office. Why? You think they don't have connections with the publishing houses? You want that nice memoir that they're going to give you a ridiculous advance on? You can't burn these people. Copies. It's going to sell no copies, but you get that money, right?
Right.
Otherwise, you're stuck self-publishing. They don't want to do that. It's a lot of work.
Exactly.
It's a lot of work for a book no one's going to buy.
897 in the YouTube chat. Thank you all for being here this morning. Very much. Eric Rousseau to the Morning Dew crew. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. Appreciate that. Carrie Scott, you promised beatbox for my rhymes. More coming soon. There you go. He's doing his best. These mics don't handle the beatboxing all that well.
I was thinking that. That's probably not even coming through, right?
Very, very
Probably
faintly.
cutting it off. Yeah.
Yeah, it thinks it's background noise. It has no taste. So white boy microphone we got here. Do you, Old Stoner, do you think they'll
It's
put
the
Hillary?
Vanilla Ice of microphones.
Yes, the Vanilla Ice of microphones. Do you think they will put Hillary on the ticket? By the way, Keaton, you called swapping out Biden. Now I want to know who you think with who. Though the hour's getting late for that.
My call was if they don't do it by the end of May, they're very unlikely to.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if it were anybody, it would be Newsom, but they'd have to come up with a last-minute excuse. And no, I don't think that Hillary Clinton will be on the ticket.
But remember, I mean, going back to the Bowman segment, Democratic primary voters are fucking mindless, man. If you've debated or talked to any shit libs lately, the trap is closed. Biden is a good man. He's a good senator, and they're in the place now where if you say anything about dementia, you're Alex Jones now.
Right, exactly. Eric Rousseau, but Dickless Kendall Kalinsky says Democrats are 1,000% better than Republicans. Well, look, to Ken's credit there, I think he turned on him. I think he endorsed Jill Stein, actually.
He endorsed Jill Stein, right?
So we won that argument, and I'll take yes for an answer.
Well, this is where my new spirit of truth and reconciliation on the left runs into some obstacles, because you know what I always think of with Kyle? I think of him yelling about the movement, yelling about what would be best for the movement in regards to Marianne. And I just can't see that as anything but a grift. I'm sorry. I just can't see it as an honest disagreement, especially when he literally lied about the magazine article he was covering. Like, you're lying. You're just lying. There's no just honest difference of opinion there. So that's where it gets complicated.
Yeah, for sure. But Bowman has locked up the fire drill vote. That's true. He's got to make sure that they turn out for him. Indeed.
But not the FDNY.
No, that's right.
They don't appreciate those false fire alarms.
No, not at all. All right, let's move on. We got a couple from Russ here. So go ahead. You can go. You are up.
All right. This is the feel-good story of the year. No, not really. We might do something that my ex passed on to me about a snake coming out of the drain in Australia. That will be the feel-good story of the year.
Wow.
But this is something to make you feel really bad if you're young, particularly in America. Who knew Lithuania, home of the vampire, is one of the best places for young people to live? You can do anything here. Look at this. Land of opportunity. Rumored to be here in North America, but actually there in Eastern Europe. In the shade of a tree on a warm day in Vilnius, Lithuania, I'm having coffee with the happiest 20-somethings in the world. Given the weather perfect and the beverage cheap, it is hard to feel anything but happy. It is harder still if, like 23-year-old Simona Jurkuvenaitė, you have just been handed 21,000 euros from the Lithuanian government to direct your debut short film about the country's teenagers. Okay, so listen. In America, I can tell you as somebody coming out of the arts, you could have been making short independent films for 20 fucking years, and nobody's handing you 21,000 euros, which I don't know what the exchange rate is right now. It's probably about $30,000. So good are the opportunities, and so high is the level of optimism that Lithuania topped this year's World Happiness Report rankings for the under 30s. The country's Gen Zers and millennials rated themselves 7.76 out of 10 on the happiness scale, miles ahead of the UK and the US at 32nd and 62nd, respectively. While the report sounded alarm bells about young people's welfare in the West, Lithuania's 20-somethings could set to work memifying and TikToking about the confirmation that they had it pretty good. Pretty good.
Sounds like a podcaster's paradise. You get funding for short films, for TikTok. That should be like that could be like the Silicon Valley of podcasters. Like we all just moved to Lithuania.
We just moved to Lithuania.
Lives in
talk to Amanda.
Colony.
Hey, listen. I've got a thing for Slavic women, so I'm down. I mean, talk to the wife, see what she says.
We'll all be there together. Jank will have TYT set up there. Get everybody. Everybody. Steven Crowder.
I would be totally down.
That would be the most interesting country in the world, to have all these rival podcasters just living amongst each other, where like you couldn't escape each other. You just run into each other everywhere.
Yeah, when I was engaged to a Polish girl, and I really dig that. She got a little annoyed because I used to make her. I would come home and I would make her say, "So we meet again, Mr. Bond." She didn't like that, but that's probably why we didn't get married. I'm kidding. I didn't do that.
No,
I actually like it here. Says I'm not even attempting that name again.
Jerk off every night. Jerk off every night. That's her name. Jerk off at night. Yeah.
Her friend Gantis, the unpronounceable woman's friend, Gantis Bendikas. I mean, come on. Are they trying to tempt us here?
Jerk off every night's friend Bendikas. Yes. No wonder they're so happy. They have funny names. They amuse themselves. Yeah.
Is there something frightfully funny when I say the name Bendikas?
Yeah.
Gantis Bendikas. Almost apologetically. The 23-year-old is about to graduate with no debt and a bent dick. And by his own admission, no anxieties about the labor market. Yes, there are problems, but there are problems everywhere, he says. I think a lot of young people here are quite patriotic. It feels, at least in Vilnius, like we live good lives compared to other European countries. Granted, it is not the most exciting place in the world. Jerk off every night complains that it can be a little boring, and Ben Dick says he is keen to see other countries before ultimately settling down here. But against a backdrop of general election mudslinging, pervasive student debt, and a housing crisis in the UK, I will take boring. Drinking a decent cup of coffee in the sun and eating a flaky pastry that didn't cost an hour's work on minimum wage. Yes, this will do. Jerk off every night, and Bendikas is Lithuania. There goes our Vilnius audience.
Yeah,
Number one audience is New York. Number two is London. We were hoping to make Vilnius number three. Not after this segment.
Yeah.
Lithuania is vastly different from the one their parents grew up in. The former Soviet country's GDP per capita has more than quadrupled in their lifetimes. Its burgeoning tech sector counts the unicorns Vinted and Nord Security among its exports, and last year average gross earnings in the country increased by 12.6%. University is free for most students, and 50% of the population have tertiary education. The EU average is 43%. As Carolina, you want to give that a shot, Keaton?
More Giunate. See that? I don't even have a joke for it. That's too hard.
That one's okay. A 23-year-old marketer puts it, quote, "We were all born in free Lithuania. We don't know anything else." Across town at the former Lukeskes prison, a rambling 1905 jail being transformed into a compound of artist studios and concert venues, it isn't hard to see why. Quote, "When I talk to friends in other places, Paris, Tokyo, London, I realize how lucky I am to have my own space," says 28-year-old artist Jolita Vaitkute. "I choose to be here because I like it here," she says. "I don't have to do work that I don't want to do, and I don't have to work in an office." Studios in the building, which was used to shoot the fourth season of the Netflix series Stranger Things, rent between 100 and 500 euros a month.
Wow.
85 to 425 pounds, that is, according to Martinas Butkavicius. You want to do the conversion real quick? What's the euro to the dollar right now?
Oh, I don't know. I'll look it up. Go ahead.
Yeah, look it up. Whose music agency won the public tender. Rents in the country are generally low compared with other European countries, though there was a 144% increase between 2010 and 2022, the second highest in the EU after Estonia.
So it's $1.08. So it's not that different. So,
so that's about $100 to $500 a month. Wow.
Right.
This sounded better and better, Keaton.
I mean, we could do live shows there. We could just make a living doing live shows there for that cheap rent.
Totally, man. I mean, your kids are young enough to pick up the language pretty quickly.
Yeah.
We'll never learn it, but they will. They can translate for us.
I mean, you got to be a genius to learn this language. Look at these names. How do you, I mean, you got to be like,
we can't
have like a 190 IQ to read.
An international incident.
Yeah, just to learn how to read, you got to be like off the train, have like a 180 IQ just to be literate with names like that.
Although I'm sure they all speak English because everyone in Europe does pretty much.
Yeah.
Kavtaradze is well placed to speak about life for young people in post-Soviet Lithuania. Her 2014 short, I'm 20-something, encapsulates perfectly the excruciating ordeal of having so many doors open to you, but not knowing which one to walk through. It's a privilege, she says, that our parents' generation could only have dreamed of. Quote, what makes us unique is that we saw the country change really quickly, she adds. In my generation, we all grew up really similarly economically. Like, I don't have friends who were rich growing up. So I think that also, in some sense, gives us the mindset that we can do anything. And Tanis Kairis, a psychology professor at Vilnius University's Faculty of Philosophy, cites the political situation as one of the main reasons for young people's well-being. Quote, youth in Lithuania have a lot of possibilities now, he says. Post-independence, the change is drastic, both in terms of the economic situation and everyday life. I think one reason why young people rank so highly in this report is because they haven't experienced the reality of the Soviet Union. They know it only from the stories of their parents and grandparents. The war in Ukraine threatens to upend the stability Lithuania has worked to achieve over the past 34 years. Young people are plagued by anxiety about what might happen if, as Motijunati puts it, this war goes to the wrong side. All right, so I made this point very early on in the Ukraine war. Yeah, my experience with the Slavic people surrounding Russia, they fucking hate Russia. Hate them. Not just because of the Soviet Union. That's the colonizing power of that region. There is a long history of them occupying these countries, annexing these countries to itself and making them satellites before the Eastern Bloc. So, yeah, that's where a lot of that is coming from. I think they recognize it's not the Soviet Union, but there is a deep cultural memory of Russia as an occupying power in the surrounding nations. My experience of people from those places, Poland, place that, my fiance's at the time, her family, they fucking hated Russia. So like what's going on in Ukraine, yes, there are two things going on. It seems there are two populations. There's an eastern part of the country that's closer to Russia, that's more Russian identified. But that hatred of the Russians you see amongst the more Ukrainian identifying population, that's real. That's very typical of that region. So that's why they would perceive that war that way. Also, in regards to the Soviet Union, you're very hard pressed to find anyone who experienced the Soviet Union who is going to have anything good to say about it. I think very often this is a big part of why communists are so hostile towards social democrats, because it's a rival system that seems to work better and make people happier. And it undermines their entire political and economic philosophy. Like, look at this. Why would you look at this and say, no, nope, that's no good. That's no good. We need to get rid of this. This doesn't work.
Well, there's
Seems
also
like it works pretty fucking well.
Well, there's also the issue that Lithuania is a NATO country. They've been in NATO for 20 years, which A, could have gotten them an influx of Western money, and B, means that they really don't have anything to fear. I mean, that last paragraph where the guy says, well, you know, we're anxious that this is going to upend our way of life, this war in Ukraine, because it's going the wrong way. Well, no, it's not gonna it's not gonna hurt you, because Russia's not going to invade a NATO country. That's why the war in Ukraine is happening, because they couldn't afford to have Ukraine become a NATO country. Right. And so, you know, they've been integrated into the Western world for about 20 years, which makes sense that these young people would grow up with a different experience of the country than people who came 20 years prior. Right.
Sure.
They are growing up in the sort of post-NATO, post sort of integration phase.
Well, and post-Soviet phase, post-communist phase. They're living in what's essentially a social democracy with free college, free healthcare, grants for your short film. You know, when you hear things like that in America, that some kid got a grant to do a short film, you assume that they're rich kids with connections. You would just assume that.
Well, it's a paradise for podcasting.
It is a paradise for podcasting.
And short filmmaking.
Cheap rent. As artists, we had this circumstance in the United States at one time, where you had all of these pockets of creativity that resulted from having a lot of cheap available space within densely populated areas where there was a large audience for the art makers. San Francisco, Los Angeles at one time, Soho in New York. You know, a key ingredient in that was everything being cheap, so that people had freedom to create and not be working these back. Look at what she says in that article. I don't have to work a job that I don't want to do. I don't have to go work in an office. So it's not, it's very interesting. You know, it's not to see young people somewhere in the world in this kind of notoriously depressed and economically strapped generation in the West. And you look, wow, I mean, there's this, I assume Lithuania is not the only pocket where things are better, but it's number one, according to the article, of happiness. It's something to really take a look at, like what kind of, because I think a lot of the left now is trying to figure out what model do we look at. And, you know, I've been advocating that kind of model. I mean, there are just certain basic things that society should provide. There are certain baseline things: education, healthcare, living wage. You know, beyond that, I think you're pushing it.
I mean, like I said, these are arguments I don't engage in for reasons that I've explained quite a bit. Like, there is no model. We're not going to build a model. You don't get to build a model because you have opposing ideas within the system. So you don't get to actually build a structure of government the way you want it to. Never comes out the way you want it to, no matter what. So to me, to, you know, get into debates about, okay, how is this actually going to work? It's not going to work the way anyone wants it to work. Everything is going to have to be improvised in real time. No matter what.
That's true. That's very true. But you have to have a blueprint that you're working from. You have to have it. You can't have a movement without an idea of what the movement is aiming to become.
I understand that. But
like, what are you rallying people around?
Well, I think you rally people. You rally people. You know, you organize workers. That's it. You organize workers.
To what end?
You organize workers. To what? You don't have any control over to what end. You really don't have any control over to what end. This is why I see it all as just a push and pull, right? It's all about conflict. It's all about struggle. It's about class conflict. You know, whatever model arises from that is going to be a model that's constantly in flux, constantly, no matter what.
Yeah, but part of that conflict is a conflict over visions of the direction society should take.
Yeah, I understand
the American Revolution generated a lot of theory before that theory was put into practice. And did it come out exactly the way anyone intended? Of course not. Does what it wound up being reflect those earlier pamphlets like Common Sense? Sure it does. Are the ideas in there reflected in what they made? Yes, it is. In an exact form? No. But that was an important framework to guide the effort.
Left hand up. All right, 673 in the Rumble chat. We'll move on. Randy Trestrail, $5 super sticker. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate that. Perry Anderson, disappointing, but expected from Dems, paid to lose. Thank you, Perry. Appreciate that. Let's see. We got some Rumble rants over here. If he hasn't already, said for the $5, please urge Jose Vega to get on Brian Lair's show on WNYC. Brian has notable lib bias, but he focuses a lot on micro-local issues and has the ear of many educated Democrats. How long has he been around for? I feel like I've heard that name forever in New York radio, Brian Lair. He must be up there, unless I'm thinking of the wrong guy. But I remember hearing that name like when I was a kid almost. AIPAC owns our elected officials. By the way, where is the congressional inquiry on Israelis' election interference? Well, no inquiry needed. They're spending record amounts. They're spending $100 million on the squad's primaries alone. Just that this cycle. So nothing really too much to look into. It's pretty out in the open. Thank you for that. Movie Magus 2. Change my nickname from that's ironic. Change my nickname from Movermass7654 so that Keaton can say it. Well, I still can't say it. What is that? Movie Magus 2? Is that what it is? Low T Johnny Bravo is one of the greatest jokes of all time. Thank you. You might have to change it again. I don't know. I hope it's funny that you changed it to that so that I could say it right, and I still fucked it up.
That is one of your all-time classics.
Thank you. Yes, I like that one. All righty, let's go on to segment number 3. All right, Russell's got another one. This is Elon. Mr. Elon won a court case or had a
friend
court
of show,
case.
Elon Musk. He reached out to us. He loved our...
One second. Start that one more time. I talked over the intro. We're going to have to clip this. So we need a nice, clean friend of show, Elon Musk.
Friend of show, Elon Musk. He really liked our Cybertruck coverage over at Jimmy's show. He reached out with an email, gave us a free blue check for that.
Yeah.
But this is the good Musk. As we like to say, the Musk giveth and the Musk taketh away. This is the good Musk. So Australia tried to impose a ban on X of showing video of a stabbing that took place in a church. Now, while X and Musk, through X, conceded their right to dictate law within their country, they were asserting the very dangerous right to put a blanket worldwide ban on that footage. And this is exactly what Michael Schellenberger, amongst others, have been warning about. They've been warning that the intelligence services behind the scenes are working in coordination around the world to try to pass laws in countries that don't have a First Amendment that will ultimately impact the United States, so that all of these social media platforms will wind up creating a uniform standard that goes to the lowest common denominator of the most restrictive law that they have to conform to in order to function in the most restrictive country in their orbit. Now, this was a very interesting test case of that in practice, where Australia asserted its right to ban this worldwide, and X and Musk rightly fought back. Australia on Wednesday announced that it dropped its legal battle against Elon Musk's X to have graphic footage of a church stabbing in Sydney removed from the social media platform. The dispute was widely seen as a test case for the Australian government's ability to enforce its online safety standards on the social media giants. Julie Inman Grant, commissioner of Australia's online safety regulator, said in a statement that after weighing multiple considerations, she decided that discontinuing the proceedings would, quote, likely achieve the most positive outcome for the online safety of all Australians, especially children. That is what you call face saving, a face saving statement that makes absolutely no sense. We're not going to give up the principle that we have this right, but actually, by dropping a case that we're sure to lose, we are asserting that authority. Okay, Julie. Our sole goal and focus in issuing our removal notice was to prevent this extremely violent footage from going viral, potentially inciting further violence and inflicting more harm on the Australian community. I stand by my investigators and the decisions eSafety made, Inman Grant said, referencing Australia's independent regulator for online safety. X's global government affairs team welcomed the news, saying in a post that the firm was, quote, heartened to see that freedom of speech has prevailed. Freedom of speech is worth fighting for, Musk also posted on X shortly after the announcement. Bishop Mar Mari Emanuel was stabbed during a live-streamed sermon in Sydney in the middle of April that was widely circulated online, racking up hundreds of thousands of views. He survived the incident. Following the attack, which was declared a terror incident by police, Australia's eSafety commissioner was granted a temporary legal injunction ordering X to hide posts that showed the footage. Musk challenged the earlier court order as an assault on free speech. Last month, the Musk-owned social media platform won a reprieve in Australia when a court refused to extend a temporary order blocking videos of the Sydney church stabbing globally. The legal dispute prompted a war of words between senior Australian officials and Musk. In an interview in late April, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese called Musk an arrogant billionaire who thinks he stands above Australian law. Referring to Albanese, Musk responded on X, I do not think I'm above the law. Does the PM think he should have jurisdiction over all of Earth? He added, this platform adheres to the laws of countries in those countries, but it would be improper to extend one country's ruling to other countries. Musk also described eSafety Commissioner Inman Grant as a censorship commissar for pursuing a global ban of the graphic footage. Inman Grant told ABC News that Musk's attack against her resulted in an online pile-on from his millions of followers, along with death threats and the online exposure of personal information of her children. This is my Brie moment.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Luckily, no one can fire us.
Yes, exactly. Fortunately, we're self-employed. All right. So, hey, when Musk does the right thing, we give him credit. When he releases an absurd science fiction prop and charges an outrageous amount of money for it, calling it a functioning truck, we're honest about that too. It's a sad thing that you have to rely on a sociopathic, emotionally unstable scumbag to defend free speech, but it's all we got. It's all we got. There's nobody, I cannot think of anyone other than Elon Musk who would challenge this. All of the other people in his class would just bend the knee. Zuckerberg would not take on a battle like this, even though I think ideologically he would probably agree with Musk here. It seems most of these Silicon Valley guys are libertarians, ultimately. Right. He would probably agree with it, but he would not take up this battle. Elon Musk is really the only one who would have done it, and it's important. It's important. Schellenberger has been warning a lot about this, and he's right. It is extremely dangerous to have these countries like Canada passing these Aldous Huxley Brave New World kinds of laws with the intelligence services, hoping that's ultimately gonna come back to the United States.
Well, his stance on this was reasonable, which is like, look, we're happy to abide by your laws, but you can't tell us that no one else in the world is allowed to see.
It was an insane thing to even assert.
Right? Because, I mean, on what authority can you make that ruling? Like,
right.
If this video exists and I have a platform that operates in multiple countries throughout the world, who are you to say what people can see outside of your country? Like, I don't think I don't think tech companies should be interfering in the laws of other countries. Like, fine, you respect, you guys, have your system over there. You show your people whatever you want. And if they have a problem with it, they'll either vote you out or overthrow you or whatever. That's not our business. But yeah, you can't let, because otherwise all of these, forums, whether it's Meta, Twitter, whatever, they will operate according to the rules of the most censorious regimes on earth.
Right.
And that's how they sneak through an anti-speech standard, is they say, well, we operate everywhere, and in order to not create more work for ourselves, we are just going to create a blanket standard, one size fits all. What's good for the United States is good for Australia, is good for Canada. And so if a policy would fly in the U.S. but not in Australia, we're going to sort of conform to what the most censorious government wants. And that's the danger here, because they were trying to set a global standard for what everyone in the world was permitted to expose themselves to, regardless of whether or not they fell under the jurisdiction of the Australian PM. It was absurd. It was absurd, but you're right. Most people would not fight this fight, because the real ethos of tech is, yes, move fast, break things is number one. The real ethos of tech is set it and forget it. That's what they want.
Right.
These people do not like to work. These tech people hate to work. That's why they got into this. They got into this so they can live in a high-rise condo and make millions of dollars a year in their gym shorts. That's what they like best. So most people in that spot would just set a one-size-fits-all, okay, that's the rule everywhere. Because to manage it according to each individual jurisdiction, that takes work, that takes people. We don't want to hire people. We don't want to work. We want to be able to run this ourselves off of our laptop and our cell phone from wherever we want. And Elon is like that to a large extent too. But apparently this was a battle he thought was worth fighting, and it looks like he won.
Yes, and tomorrow he's going to ban 6 leftists for no apparent reason from X. Remember that.
Right.
He makes a big noise about believing in free speech, but his belief is extremely selective. His belief in free speech is very much in accord with the intellectual dark web. He doesn't want his speech limited. He doesn't want speech that he favors limited.
Right. That's true. That's true. Although I do have to say, in fairness, generally, yes, you're right. Whenever he really injects himself into a battle, it is on behalf of the sort of dissident douchebag dialogue type people. Whenever he makes a thing out of it personally. I do have to say, though, the number of videos that we've seen coming out of Gaza is a lot more than we would have seen under the Jack Dorsey
absolutely
regime.
No one
he hasn't injected himself into that debate as much, but he has allowed that footage to get out there in ways that, everything would have had sensitive content warnings. It would have been suppressed and shadow banned. Yeah, absolutely. You wouldn't be seeing videos of horrible violence I don't even want to talk about in great detail getting 3, 4, 5 million views. It wouldn't have been allowed to get out there in the algorithm that much. I don't
absolutely think so.
Sure. All right, let's take a word from our sponsors. Take a little game break here. You can support this program here by going to dodissidents.com that's the address of the supporter scroll. Pardon me. Fuck that one up. Patreon.com/DoDissidents is where you go if you want to help support this program. You can sign up by becoming a patron, by joining our Substack, or by joining our locals. So the 3 support websites are patreon.com/DoDissidents, dodissidents.substack.com, or dodissidents.locals.com. Those are the 3 places where you can go and sign up and become a member. You get your name up on the patron scroll here. You also get call-in access to our post-show question and answer sessions, as well as 2 exclusive supporter streams per month. This month, as an added bonus, you get, from every month from here on out, you will get access to all of our live streams of our live shows. So we did our first 2 in New York City last weekend. That'll be up in perpetuity for paid subscribers to watch in their entirety. And whenever we do more live shows, the full live stream will be up on the Patreon feed. So you can go to patreon.com/DoDissidents, DoDissidents.substack.com, or you can join our locals if you're watching on Rumble. Easiest way to join our locals is to click that bright red join button right underneath the video player and sign up. We also... go ahead.
So somebody in the chat says that Musk works 80 hours a week, but I must interject, 65 of that is sucking Netanyahu's cock. So
yeah. Well,
only
that pays.
15 of it is actually put into Tesla X and SpaceX.
Yeah, exactly. I want to plug this too, our Give, Send, Go, which is our continuing projects fund, givesendgo.com/DoDissidents. That's where you can go and chip into our bonus project. So we are going to Chicago for the DNC this August, or I should say Russell is going to Chicago for the DNC this August. I will have a new baby at the time. But Russell will be in Chicago for the convention this year. But we are trying to fund a trip to Dearborn, Michigan to do a little documentary piece on the Arab and Muslim voters who are boycotting the Joe Biden ticket. We do need funds to make that happen. As of now, we do not have the funds to make that happen. So if you'd like to help us make that happen, you can chip in, givesendgo.com/DoDissidents. We hope we've proven by now that we put these project funds to very good use. And so if you can help us out in doing that, that is the next project that we are looking to get off of the ground. We want to do that, obviously, before Election Day. That's the whole point. So we have to go there September, October to make that happen, which means we got to start planning that right about now if we're going to do it. So if you want to help us out, that's givesendgo.com/DoDissidents. That goes into the special projects fund. Thank you guys very much for your support. For some reason, that scroll froze a little bit, so I'll let it run one more time. And while we're doing that, we'll take some super chats and Rumble rants. Paul Chu, just want to check, did either of you innocently hop on Epstein's plane with Spacey? No, not me. Yeah, he's on a rehab tour, Kevin Spacey. I don't know what happened because he won his court case. Now he's doing interviews. He was just on Piers Morgan where he talked about that. Was it Piers Morgan or one of the other British shows? I forget which one it was. I think it was Piers Morgan.
What? He's making the rounds again?
Yeah. He's doing a few interviews. Yeah, getting back into the swing of things. Yeah. American Disaster. Oh, this is Nina. Hope you're doing okay, Nina. Thank you for writing Biggest Dickest Life of Brian. Yes, thank you.
That's right. I did that actually in Rome. I was in the Forum. I recreated that scene. I had to do it.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, I remember that video. Yeah, why is this freezing halfway through? Something was wrong with the supporter scroll. All right. Anybody in the latter half of the alphabet, we apologize, but we're having a technical difficulty with the scroll. But thank you, everybody. And I'll talk to Jake about that.
Someone says he was just on Lex Friedman. YouTube finally stopped fucking feeding me those videos. It finally took the Lex Friedman hint that I'm not interested. I'm not clicking on it. Don't want to watch it.
Oh, yeah? It finally left you alone about that?
It finally left me alone about Lex fucking Friedman. Now it just feeds me 10 videos about how bad the Acolyte is.
Oh, there you go. Paul Chu, have you guys watched Zone of Interest, a great film about the banality of evil? I haven't seen it yet, no, but I want to. That was the filmmaker behind that is the one who made the Oscar speech. Yeah, so I definitely want to check that out. I guess that's available for streaming now. Australia is just a test case for USA's policies, not our online safety. Thank you, Paul Chu. Appreciate that. Let's see what we got here. Kyle is Cypher from the Matrix. Just plug me back in, and I don't want to remember anything. Who wakes up from a corrupt duopoly and then decides to go back to sleep. That's right. Will AI free us or enslave us, or it's complicated? I mean, I think eventually it'll probably enslave us if it's not reined in. Maybe the Matrix, That was a very prescient movie.
Well, if what you're talking about is sentient AI, that's actually, it's a philosophical question. Is consciousness the sum of its parts, or is there something more to consciousness? If consciousness is simply the sum of its parts, Yes, I think that ultimately by allowing AI to evolve on its own, which is kind of the model now, a learning model, a neural net model, yeah, eventually it'll stumble on consciousness. If there's something more, if there's a spark, if there's a soul, then it will never be conscious. Depends on what you believe about that.
Let's see. Richard Lee Pemberton. Congress members have to serve 5 years to qualify for a pension, so Bowman is out of luck most likely. Is that true? It's 5 years? I always thought it was just 2 terms, because 5 years is weird, because that's 2.5 terms.
2.5.
So what, they allow you to become impeached in your 3rd term? I don't know. But if that's true, then yeah, he's got something to worry about. Thank you for that. All right. Why don't we move on now to segment number 4. So, folks, there's been a lot of very confusing and contradictory headlines coming out of the Middle East this past week over a potential ceasefire that is supposedly being negotiated. Blinken expresses frustration at changes to Gaza ceasefire deal requested by Hamas. So we'll get caught up on this to the best that we can here, because this is a little complicated, since it seems like there's just a lot of jerking off going on and that we're not really going to see any kind of ceasefire deal. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Wednesday expressed frustration that Hamas has submitted numerous changes to a U.S.-backed proposal for a ceasefire and release of hostages in Gaza, a development that casts further doubt on the prospects of quickly securing the deal the U.S. hopes will bring an enduring end to the war. Some of the changes are workable, some are not, Blinken said at a press conference in Doha, describing some of those changes as going beyond positions Hamas had previously taken. Blinken, unlike an Israeli official who spoke to CNN earlier, did not go as far as to describe the response by Hamas as a rejection of the proposal, and said he believed the gaps are bridgeable. Still, the top U.S. diplomat made clear his exasperation at both the changes Hamas proposed and the length of time it took to reply, 12 days. He did not go into specific details about the changes, but he continued to cast exclusive blame for the stalling of the deal and the prolonging of the suffering of the Palestinians in Gaza on the U.S.-designated terrorist group, not on Israel. Israel accepted the proposal as it was, he reiterated, despite repeated public statements from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu seeming to cast doubt on his approval of the proposal. Hamas could have answered with a single word, yes, he said. At some point in a negotiation, and this has gone back and forth for a long time, you get to a point where if one side continues to change its demands, including making demands and insisting on changes for things that it had already accepted, you have to question whether they're proceeding in good faith or not, Blinken said in reference to Hamas. It's time for the haggling to stop and a ceasefire to start. It's as simple as that, he said. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan on Wednesday described many of Hamas's proposed changes as minor and not unanticipated. So now you have mixed messaging coming from the administration itself. You have Blinken not only contradicting Netanyahu, saying that, yeah, Israel was ready to say yes. Meanwhile, Netanyahu never gave such a firm yes. And now you have Jake Sullivan, the vice president, the de facto vice president of the country. It's really the Blinken-Sullivan White House here. He's saying that, well, these changes were minor and not unanticipated. The subtext of that, I assume, is that why is this causing such a hiccup? Why are we balking at this now? But said others differ more substantively from what was outlined in the UN Security Council resolution. That resolution, which passed the UN body on Monday, laid out the 3 phrases, I think that means phases, I think that was a typo on their part, for the ceasefire and hostage release. Yes, in the first phase, there would be an immediate, full, and complete ceasefire with the release of hostages and withdrawal of Israeli forces from the populated areas in Gaza. In Phase 2, upon agreement of the parties, there would be a permanent end to hostilities in exchange for the release of all other hostages still in Gaza and a full withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. Phase 3 would see the start of a major multi-year reconstruction plan for Gaza and the return of remains of any deceased hostages still in Gaza to their families. A diplomatic source told CNN the Hamas response contained amendments to the Israeli proposal, including a timeline for a permanent ceasefire and the complete withdrawal of Israeli troops from the Gaza Strip. Okay, so there's the real points of contention, it seems. As a senior U.S. administration official told CNN that the goalposts are moving in Hamas's response and that the group is now pressing for even greater specificity than it did before. The official had previously told CNN that what was on the table was pretty thin once you get past that first phase. Hamas's request would ultimately undermine the phased nature of the proposal on which agreement rests, the senior administration official said Wednesday. It will be difficult to get Israel to agree to automaticity. Wow, talk about $100 word.
That's a new one on me.
The ceasefire will become permanent. That means like as a given, right?
Yes, no, I understand what it means.
That's crazy.
But is that a word or did he make it up?
No, it's a real word. That's a real word, but that is quite the word. That is quite the impressive word there. So of course, this is where the disagreement always comes down to. If it's not a permanent ceasefire, it's just a break in the bombing. If you say, okay, we're going to agree to a temporary ceasefire, and then in phase 2, we're going to negotiate the terms and timelines of a potential permanent ceasefire, well, of course, that's going to be a no-go because, anything less than a permanent ceasefire just pretty much guarantees, especially since you're not dealing with good faith partners here, that guarantees the destruction of Gaza, which has clearly been their goal all along since way before this latest escalation of violence, which began on October 7th. So this is just, this is just a one more example of what running out the clock. I mean, the military phase here is nearing the end. Netanyahu says 7 more months. I think they will. Let's just say that's true. Let's just say that's true. That means that the United States has to stall for 7 more months, because that seems to be what this is here. Let's go to Anthony Blinken. This is at a press conference in Qatar at his recent trip.
In a nutshell is where we stand.
Sorry.
Here, in a nutshell, is where we stand. A deal was on the table that was virtually identical to the proposal that Hamas put forward on May the 6th. A deal that the entire world is behind, a deal Israel's accepted, and Hamas could have answered with a single word. Hamas waited nearly 2 weeks and then proposed more changes, a number of which go beyond positions that it previously taken and accepted. As a result, and you heard the Prime Minister say this, the war that Hamas started on October 7th with its barbaric attack on Israel and on Israeli civilians will go on. More people will suffer. More Palestinians will suffer. More Israelis will suffer. But in the days ahead, we are going to continue to push on an urgent basis with our partners, with Qatar, with Egypt, to try to close this deal, because we know it's in the interests of Israelis, Palestinians, the region, indeed, the entire world. And we all agree that the deal has to be grounded in the principles of the ceasefire proposal that the entire international community supports.
Okay, so there has to be a specific timeline for a permanent ceasefire, does there not? And that seems to be what Israel does not want to give them.
Right. And it seems, if I'm remembering correctly, this is the sticking point whenever a ceasefire deal has come up.
Yeah.
That Israel does not want to commit to a permanent ceasefire. So naturally, Hamas is worried, well, as soon as we give up our leverage, i.e. the hostages, that's it. They're a genocidal, racist, apartheid state that has been working to drive Palestinians out of the region since their inception, and this is their big chance. What's going to stop them once we give up these hostages? It's not like you can trust the honor of the Israelis. Right. They'll find a pretext. They'll do a false flag operation. They'll find a reason to go back in.
They won't have to. If they don't agree to it at the outset, there's nothing stopping them from just, okay, in phase 2, we decide, well, fuck everything, right? right? Phase 2, we decide we have to go back in. And so, yes, every deal has fallen apart on the question of, is this going to be a permanent ceasefire or not? And a full hostage release was on the table months ago in exchange for a permanent ceasefire. Obviously, we all want every hostage back home safe. And so what is the way to get there? The way to get there would be to agree to a permanent ceasefire in exchange for a full hostage swap. Because there are Gazans being held hostage as well. They don't call Gazan hostages hostages. They call them prisoners, but they are hostages. Sure. Absolutely. Children who are in jail for throwing rocks at tanks, those are not prisoners. Those are hostages. Okay? So let's just be real about that. And the way to get every hostage home safe, which is what everybody wants, is to do so through a permanent ceasefire agreement, which was on the table months ago. Instead, Israel makes a big show of the fact that they did a military operation which killed 274 people so that they can get 4 hostages back. They had the opportunity to do that peacefully. They are choosing to do it violently, which is why, of course, any ceasefire deal is going to be a non-starter if there are not amendments in place which provide specific timelines and conditions, obviously, for a permanent ceasefire. But as long as that's open-ended, as long as the starting point is, well, we're going to start at 6 weeks and then we'll go from there, well, then you're never going to have a deal, because you can't expect the other side to give up all of their leverage in a multi-phase deal where they have to give up their leverage in phase 1, or what is it, early phase 2, whatever it was, and then trust that you're not going to be decimated anyway. I mean, so it's just and on this fucking this so-called Secretary of State of ours, this guy's going around on this tour of the Middle East. Notice we've never gotten anywhere. Like, even if you believe the best about these people, which is that they're not these genocidal butchers, right? Which is that they're not these just bloodless madmen. Even if you are
listen, Blinken chills my blood. It's like the scene in The Talented Mr. Ripley when Gwyneth Paltrow realizes what he is. Right, that's exactly, how I feel when I watch him. There's an empty soullessness to this man. When he tries to express emotion and compassion, it's just so obvious you're watching a sociopath faking it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, obviously. But I'm saying, even if, let's say you're a George Latimer voting Democrat in Westchester, right? And you want to believe the best about these people, especially him. Look at the haplessness and incompetence of this man. He goes over, what is it? I mean, I lost count. How many trips has he made to the region over the past, 7-8 months in hopes of brokering a deal? And every single time he gets nowhere. And every single time he is caught making excuses for the fact that he has not been able to break an inch of grounds on brokering any sort of peace. Like, even if you are totally blue-pilled, even if you believe the best about these people that you possibly could, look at the just impotence of them. Look at just how weak they are. Look at how incompetent they are. And like I said, that's even if you're blue-pilled.
In the end, they're not. I just sent you Axios, of all outlets, scooped a story that we have quietly, behind the scenes, been making military and security agreements with Arab countries in the surrounding area. This is what's going on in the background. Sure. That's what they are concerned about. If Saudi Arabia really turned around, and that's one of the countries they're talking to, if Saudi Arabia turned around and said, listen, this is going to be a deal breaker for our security arrangements, then they might actually care. They don't care. They just have to go through the motions of caring. I told you I'm reading right now.
Well, that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, even if you're blue-pilled and you don't look at that far, you look at a guy make trip after trip after trip and you see nothing change. Right. How do you maintain support for that person? How do they not look like one of the weakest diplomats in the modern history of the world? Look at how many airline miles this guy has racked up, going back and forth all over. Now he's on this Middle East tour. He went to Qatar, went to Jordan. What does he have to show for anything? Nothing. So even if you're totally blue-pilled, you have to look at that and say, okay, these people are incredibly incompetent. And then if you look under the surface, you could see obviously it's all going more or less according to what they want.
Sure. And this is, I'm reading Elon Pape's book right now, and he really gets into how initially Zionism was not even a Jewish project. It was a project of Christian Protestants, who we've talked about this. I mean, this is still the case with evangelicals. They want the Jews there as Jesus bait to bring, to fulfill the prophecy. That was part of it. And under the British Empire, part of it was exactly what it is for us, to be a client state in a region where they wanted to be able to extend the reach of their empire. So you stick the Jews there and make them a client state. And you also make the religious fanatics happy. The Anglican Church was for it. And we just kind of inherited that project. We inherited this British project of putting Jews back in Palestine in order to extend the reach of the empire. That's what they are for us. That is what Israel is. And that's why in the end, we'll never turn on them.
Right. Exactly. Where's skill? Australia should have just hired a Zionist lobby to argue for censorship. Musk would have deleted video and gave them all a reach around. That's right. Thank you, Where's skill? Appreciate that. Let's see here. Ranger Biker, thanks for the $5. Great to meet you in person after the Sunday matinee. Hey, thanks, Ranger Biker. Would be so easy for incumbents to actually get reelected if they simply told the truth and voted their constituents' wishes. What happened there? Did it get cut off? I think you ran into a character limit there, my friend. Let's see. I believe you hit the limit there. Yeah, you did. Oh, no, Height of Irony is what you had typed in the actual scroll. Let's see here. Alaska calls. You should dig further on the reasons of Russian hate amongst the Poles and Lithuanians and such. Before the rise, they were the great EU powers, the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, the king. These are all cutting off here.
Yeah. Hey, it wasn't just Russia. If you go back to the collapse of the Roman Empire and European history for the next 1,500 years or so, it's constant shifting back and forth of the borders between these different countries. One year you're under the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The following year, you're under the Tsar. There was a constant trading back and forth of these regions. But for the most part, when you're talking about those Eastern Bloc countries, the bully in the neighborhood for them was Russia. Russia was for them, for a lot of their history, what the United States is for South America. It's that big power in the region that interferes in your internal affairs and is very often annexing and occupying your land. I don't understand why some people can't just look at history as complicated and rather horrible. Like, there are no good guys in history, really. There are a lot of victims of history, but even overall, people who are victims of history often were because their cultures didn't develop a state that allowed them to defend themselves. A lot of cultures that later became victims of imperial powers, like the Maori, for example, committed horrible atrocities against weaker tribal societies in their area. I always think of a line in Anthony Burgess's novel Kingdom of the Wicked. It's best to simply drink a glass of wine and accept that humanity is a bad lot.
Well, yeah, that's I certainly agree with that. Pete
Yes.
Sweet, thanks,
See,
Russ.
I'm speaking your language.
Yeah. Thanks, Russ Keaton, for a great year. Raised and lived in Dearborn Heights for over 50 years. Oh, wow, it's amazing. You'll be more than welcome by the great people there. Yeah, that'll be amazing if we can make that happen. That is up in the air at the moment, but we hope to make that happen. All right, let's move on here. Okay, this is something that'll wake you guys up. This will wake everybody up. This will get you in a fighting mood for the day. I saw this video on Twitter, and I thought to myself, because I saw it was edited a little bit, there were some weird cuts, and so whenever I see a weird cut in a video, I'm like, all right, was the meaning of this distorted in some way? And then I realized, oh no, it's not, because Donny Deutsch himself tweeted out this video. This wasn't somebody finding something horrible that Donny Deutsch said and decided, all right, we're going to start some shit with Donny Deutsch by clipping this and causing a pile-on. And as you can see, it did cause quite the pile-on, 929 likes to 2,000 replies. That is quite a ratio. But Donny Deutsch put this out himself. Let's have an honest conversation about civilian casualties. Here he goes.
Start to really talk honestly about the definition of civilian casualties. 4 hostages rescued and 270 Palestinian civilians killed. We need to start to look at that word civilians. When the hostages were being held by a Palestinian journalist, a civilian, and a Palestinian doctor, a civilian, these are not civilians. These are Hamas ambassadors. And yes, there are innocent civilians, but I think back to also
innocent civilians, you mean like the children who are, what, 40% of the dead? 2/3 are women and children. So it's let's say we assume it's equal numbers women and children, which is probably not the case, because a household typically has one woman in it and a bunch of children in it, right? But you're talking about at least 37.5%, according to the math here. Children.
Well,
so they're not innocent civilians? Oh, yeah, there were some. There are some.
And you can see that we talked about this the last show. You can tell when these people got orders because they all start saying the same thing at the same time. If you notice, this narrative started getting put out by commentators all at the same time. And then it gets repeated by all the crazy Zionists that you know. Well, because they know they have to do something about this narrative that civilians, and this reality that these civilians are being mass slaughtered. So this is their attempt to spin it. Well, are they really civilians?
Right. And think of the absurdity of what he's saying here. Okay. Norman Finkelstein said when they accused UNRWA of having Hamas fighters working, he says, all that proves is that the Hamas fighters have day jobs. And that's really all this proves here, too. And look at the numbers. Even if what you're saying is true, which we'll take for granted that, yes, it is. Okay, sure, there was a doctor and a journalist who were holding a hostage. So let's say you designate those people as combatants, Hamas ambassadors, if you will. Combatants. Let's just put things very simply. Combatant versus non-combatant. How many combatants to a hostage? You rescued 4 hostages. Okay, so let's say each hostage was being held hostage by 10 combatants. That gets you to, what, 40 combatants? How many people were killed in this rescue operation? 274? When a full hostage swap was on the table months ago, which would have killed no one? And you're going to come here and now try and litigate, well, are the civilians really civilians? First of all, accepting your premise, the math does not work. You're still talking about a grotesque ratio of civilian to combatant in terms of death count for this most recent operation, which is, of course, what he's referencing because he's talking about who the hostages were and who they were being held hostage by, meaning specifically in the room with them. That's why he said a doctor and a journalist.
Yeah. And you know what they're also not showing on Western media, and we discussed this last night. We're not going to show it here. We'll show it maybe on Rumble. Hey, a lot of what the hostages have to say about the way they were treated is off narrative.
Yes, there is a lot of that.
I'm not even going to get into it, but a lot of them are not saying what they would prefer them to say. I think what I can say here is you have some of them screaming at Netanyahu for his conduct of the war and for not doing more to release the hostages. And you're not even seeing that footage, which is much less controversial.
Those are big. There's a lot of footage there because those are massive protests in the streets. Those are not just a few people here and there protesting.
Yeah, no, these are people who were hostages trying to confront Netanyahu, and you're not seeing any of that in the American press.
Exactly. We'll back this up a little bit.
These are not civilians. These are Hamas ambassadors. And yes, there are innocent civilians, but I think back to also the hundreds and thousands of rabid Gazans as they drag their corpse through Gaza, cheering, hysterical with glee and joy. And it's just, once again, the media coverage is, and these were 4 hostages.
Again, your math, hundreds of thousands? You saw hundreds of thousands of people? We all saw that footage. Did you see hundreds of thousands of people? I didn't. You know what hundreds of thousands of people look like? Hundreds of thousands of people look like what Russell was just saying. Protests in Israel demanding the hostages back. That's what huge crowds of people look like.
that were taken on a day that 1,200 Israelis were slaughtered, maimed, decapitated, killed in the most gruesome way. And I don't know if Americans had 4 hostages that were taken and we had a rescue mission, and yes, there were 270 casualties, and many of those Palestinian casualties are deep, deep, deep sympathizers of Hamas. Would the coverage be the same way? Would anybody be criticizing the rescue mission, or would it be truly one of heroism? But I do think we have to start to really talk honestly about the definition of civilian casualties.
You know, we did not, I made this point several months ago, we did not blow up the bin Laden compound. We landed helicopters stealthily outside and sent people in on the ground. And they didn't even have American hostages there. But we didn't want to simply blow up the building because there were human shields in there. Well,
to be fair, there were some very rare editions of Debbie Does Dallas and other Golden Age porn.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
DVDs there.
Yes.
That we were ordered to retrieve.
A valuable stash. But that aside, this argument he's making, ironically, is an argument that terrorists make, that there are no innocent civilians.
Right.
This is the argument that Hamas, I'm
collective
sure, feels.
Guilt.
Right, exactly. There's collective guilt. Glenn Greenwald responds that people lose. Oh, he didn't respond specifically to this, but as Russell said, this argument is sort of the zeitgeist now. Are they innocent civilians for real? That people lose their status as innocent civilians if they support their government's violence and thus become legitimate targets was exactly the rationale used by Osama bin Laden. Yes, that's terrorist talk. Americans choose their leaders and support bombing our region, so they're not innocent. Yes, this is the rationale for terrorism. I find the views of the average Israeli, the great majority of Israelis, to be objectionable to the point that I can call them horrible people. I cannot justify violence against civilians because I'm not a terrorist. If you say there are no innocent civilians because innocent civilians have opinions and elect leaders that do great harm, well, then you are shattering the distinction between combatant and non-combatant. Whatever the views of a population, there are rules of war, which ironically, they're very keen to cite when brown people violate them. Right? But rules of war is that non-combatants are off limits. Non-combatants must be off limits in every war on both sides, because if you cannot declare non-combatants off limits, then you cannot enforce international law because you cannot prosecute war crimes if you're going to choose between worthy and unworthy victims. But of course, that's exactly what we do. And that's, of course, what Donny Deutsch is doing. What Greenwald said is 100% right. 100% right. If you decide that a civilian population is responsible to the point where they should pay with their lives for the leaders they elect, that is the argument that an Osama bin Laden type would make. That's the argument that Hamas would make, ironically. So if you're going to reject it going one way, you, of course, have to reject it going the other way. But look, Donny Deutsch gets a retweet from the state of Israel. The official silver check, not even blue check, silver checked Israel account. Donny Deutsch is absolutely right. Reminder that a journalist and doctor held Israeli hostages captive in Gaza. And look at this. Prem Thacker tweets out, the government of Israel's official Twitter account is not just running with "there are no innocent civilians in Gaza." They are now boosting the tweet as an ad.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, that's Donny Deutsch got his orders. Poor little rich kid that he is, like so many of these commentators are. No talent to speak of, simply inherited a business from his family, an advertising business. That's the only reason he's on TV. Not because he's qualified, not because he has anything interesting to say. He's rich and he has connections, so he's on TV spouting whatever AIPAC tells him to say. That's who these people are. These people are criminals. I'll tell you what. I will give something. I know I've been hard on our tanky friends today. You know, the part of the revolution where you round up the Donny Deutsches, that part I fully support. That's the best part of this idea. That Donny Deutsch has to answer for his crimes to the People's Tribunal. That I can get behind. But if you want to make the argument there are no innocent civilians, What do you say about a country where people go party at a music festival outside a concentration camp, and it's a country that has universal conscription, except for the ultra-Orthodox, which they're currently challenging in court. They're trying to make them submit to military service. So most of the people in Israel, unless they get out of it for religious or medical reasons, are veterans or active members of the service. So if you're really going to take this argument to its logical conclusion, that applies much more to Israel than it does to Gaza, where most of the victims are women and children who have not served in Hamas, who have not served in the military. Almost the entire population has served in the military in Israel.
Yeah, but I mean, if they're not active duty, then they're not combatants, and that's the thing. You have to determine.
I'm saying if you're gonna take this logic forward to complicity, well, you've worked in the IDF, and if you consider that a criminal organization, well, you're responsible even when you're out of the IDF.
Right. No, I agree, but that's what I'm saying. That's why that argument is such a dangerous argument to make.
Sure. I'm not making it. Right. I'm saying, if you want to make this argument, it can be doubly turned around on Israel.
Right. And that's part of why it's a psychotic argument. It's a psychotic argument to say that because people elect leaders that do violent things, that they ought to be personally responsible to the point where they are legitimate targets to pay with their lives. Again, that is terrorist ideology, that everyone is fair game, whether they're combatants or not.
Right.
Once that collapses, rule of law collapses. There is no international law at that point. There are no rules of war at that point. And of course, Donny Deutsch wants the rules of war respected in one direction, but not in the other. Right.
Well, that's what it always is. The more you look at the position of the West, and it's hard, I think, even for people in our space to really overcome a lifetime of brainwashing and acknowledge we're the baddies. Who has military bases all around the world? And we're meant to absorb this narrative that we're under threat from ill-intentioned and backward people all around the world who don't have any military bases threatening us.
Right. Of course. All right, let's go on to some more super chats here. Been so long since I caught a live show. I keep expecting to hear Jeb say, "Please clap." Russell, I made your Obi-Wan meme into a T-shirt. Oh, really? What Obi-Wan meme was that? I forgot. It has been a long time.
Which one was that?
Yeah,
which one?
It really has been a long time. You're not kidding. Let's see here. Spacey on Piers Morgan said he didn't know who Epstein was in 2002 or 2015 and said he didn't want Epstein near Clinton because he was a danger to the president. I thought you didn't know him. Well, yeah, they were all very good friends. Spacey and Bill Clinton go back decades. They go back years and years and years. I think Spacey volunteered with his first campaign, his 92 campaign. So yeah, they've been very tight for a while. Oh yeah. They're very, very, very close. That's what made the House of Cards thing so creepy, is that like those characters were based on the Clintons, loosely inspired by the Clintons, supposedly, taking this very sort of dark, sort of satirical view of them. Meanwhile, the guy who's playing the character is like friends with this guy for decades. His Highness, did you see free speech absolutist Elon is getting rid of likes on Twitter? I'm guessing so elite fucks don't have to get ratioed anymore. Yeah, what is that? I don't know.
Yeah.
He always says he's going to do some shit.
They're not going to. It's not going to. People can't see what you liked. I don't know if is he getting rid of likes, or is he getting rid of you being able to see what other people liked?
I think
that was how I read it.
Yeah, like it won't notify you so-and-so liked this post.
Right.
Because now sometimes you'll get a tweet with the heading so-and-so. Yeah, you can't get rid of likes. I mean, likes, that's the whole ball game.
That's the whole thing. That's the whole dopamine addiction business model.
Exactly.
That's the whole lonely people who have not spoken to anything without 4 legs in 10 years who spend all day on their motivation.
4 legs, maybe 6 to 8 legs.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see what we got here. J. Michael, but Keaton, Hamas uses civilians as human shields. They are scum. They do not stand out in the open with signs saying, "Please attack here." Yeah, I would just say to that, and I don't know, how you mean that, but I would say, if when a bank robber takes a bank hostage, do we blow up the bank? Is that an acceptable thing to do? To blow up the bank, kill everyone to get one person? No. If a domestic terrorist organization took over a hospital here in the U.S., do you think we'd be able to just the same day decide, all right, that's it, all powers cut off to the hospital. We're setting up snipers outside the hospital. Anything that moves in the hospital gets shot. We're going to lay siege upon the hospital. No, we wouldn't stand for that. And the example people like to throw back at that is Waco. Well, Waco is considered one of the darkest chapters in modern American history, number one. And number two, the government didn't move on Waco until 53 days in, right? There's a 53-day standoff because they knew what a horrible thing that would be for the government to have to do if they actually did that. So Pat Donahue, the mental gymnastics that psychopath does to condone massacres of humans sums up the evil mind of the American neocon, an ideology rooted in racism. YouTube chat wouldn't let me send this, by the way. Thanks, Pat Donahue. Appreciate that. Okay, let's go on. We got some more super chats here and Rumble rants to get to. Here we go. Ronald, hey, I'm reading Tony Greenstein's book, Zionism During the Holocaust. Hard reading, not a great writer, but the information is there. Collaborators all the way. Thank you. Okay, let's move on here. Go ahead. We got another story. Russell, this one's queued up.
Okay, so these have been coming pretty fast this week. Not only have you had the UN accuse Israel of violations against children, they also did a report accusing them of crimes against humanity this week. And there's also a report, I haven't been able to dig into this, of sexual assault by IDF soldiers. Israel's response to all of these is, it's an outrage! It's outrageous! Anti-Semitism, you're all Hamas. More grave violations against children were committed in Gaza, the West Bank, and Israel than anywhere else in the world last year, according to a UN report due to be published this week. The report on children in armed conflict, which has been seen by The Guardian, verified more cases of war crimes against children in the occupied territories in Israel than anywhere else, including the Democratic Republic of Congo, Myanmar, Somalia, Nigeria, and Sudan. Israel and the occupied Palestinian territory presents an unprecedented scale and intensity of grave violations against children, the report said. The annual assessment, due to be presented to the UN General Assembly later this week by the Secretary General Antonio Guterres, lists Israel for the first time in an annex of state offenders responsible for violations of children's rights, triggering outrage from the Israeli government. In reality, this is my editorial note, Israel should have been on this list long ago, given that they imprison children. Isn't that something we consider just out of bounds for a civilized society? Imprisoning children? Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu issued a statement that the UN had, quote, added itself to the blacklist of history when it joined those who support the Hamas murderers. Holocaust card. The report details only cases that UN investigators were able to verify, so it accounts for just part of the total number of deaths and injuries of children in the course of the last year. In all, the UN verified, quote, 8,009 grave violations against 4,360 children in Israel, Gaza, and the West Bank, more than twice the figures for the DRC, the next worst place for violence against children.
Wow.
It is worse than the Congo. Of the total number of child victims verified, 4,247 were Palestinian, 113 were Israeli.
So basically it's even.
Stems from October 7th.
Right.
Yeah, it's a wash. It's a wash. Yeah. You know what it is? It's complicated.
Right.
It's a very complicated situation.
Thing. Yeah.
It's very hard to solve this. In all, 5,698 violations were attributed to Israeli armed and security forces and 116 to Hamas's armed wing, the Izz ad-Din al-Qassam brigades. Israeli settlers were judged responsible in 51 cases, and Palestinian Islamic Jihad's Al-Quds Brigade were involved in 21. Between 7th October and the end of December last year, the UN verified the killing of 2,051 Palestinian children and said the process of attributing responsibility was ongoing, but the report noted, quote, most incidents were caused by the use of explosive weapons in populated areas by Israeli armed and security forces. The report conceded it reflected only a partial picture of the situation in Gaza. Quote, owing to severe access challenges, in particular in the Gaza Strip, the information presented herein does not represent the full scale of violations against children in this situation, it said. The report also found grave abuses by Israeli forces in the West Bank. Hang on, but I thought this is all about Hamas. There's no Hamas in the West Bank. With 126 Palestinian children killed and 906 detained. The UN verified 5 cases where soldiers used boys, quote, to shield forces during law enforcement operations. Hang on, I thought that's what Hamas does. I thought it's Hamas that uses the civilians as human shields. In the course of 2023, in the run-up to the Hamas 7th October attack on Israel, the UN said Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad's armed wings organized summer camps in which children were exposed to military content and activities. And once again, there is quite a lot of footage of Israel doing exactly that with Israeli children.
Yeah, Max Blumenthal did it when he went there. That was one of the things that he filmed when he was there.
In the first 3 months of the war, the UN verified 23 separate cases of the denial of humanitarian access by Israeli authorities, quote, related to denied coordination of humanitarian aid missions and prevention of access to medical care. In the course of the Israeli offensive in Gaza, the UN found nearly all critical infrastructure, facilities, and services have been attacked, including shelter sites, United Nations installations, schools, hospitals, water and sanitation facilities, grain mills, and bakeries. Children are at risk of famine, severe malnutrition, and preventable death, the UN report said. I am appalled by the dramatic increase and unprecedented scale and intensity of grave violations against children in the Gaza Strip, Israel, and the occupied West Bank, Guterres tells the General Assembly in the report. Our ally, ladies and gentlemen, but we're the good guys. We're the good guys in a world of hostile, irrational actors.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the fact that half of the Gazan population are children, and then you look at the fact that they have been under blockade for this long, you do have to wonder, was the goal to drive them out, or was the goal to simply genocide them? And of course, neither of those things would have been possible absent a cataclysmic, catastrophic event, i.e. a new Pearl Harbor, to borrow language from the Project for a New American Century document, which predated 9/11 by 3 years, if you know what I mean. What is the end game there? Because certainly the pre-October 7th Gaza Strip is not the end game for Israel. They clearly want all of this land for themselves. And so you have to wonder what the end game actually is and how you can lay this kind of siege upon this population without these grave offenses against children. It's impossible. It's impossible. The population is half children. It's half children.
Well, remember, and this is something that Pop A gets into in his book as well. I'm hoping we can have him on to discuss it. I don't see him too much doing interviews, do you?
No, not much.
So it might be hard to get him. But one of the points he makes is from the beginning, the Zionist project was a vision of from the river to the sea.
Right.
That they would drive all these Palestinians out and that you'd have this greater Israel that would be from the Jordan to the Mediterranean. And this is what they're doing. This is what they've always been doing. Any talk about two-state solutions, it's all been buying time. It's all been throwing up a smokescreen. It's all been gradually squeezing the Palestinians out of this region. In the end, when you look, there are no von Clausewitz. There are no contradictions. When you think you found a contradiction, check your premises. If Israel really wanted two states, there would have been two states a long time ago. They've never wanted two states. The goal, if you look at their actions, is consistent with trying to drive the Palestinians out of that area and pretending that their hand is forced at every stage, where they're actually seizing whatever opportunity they can, as they did in 1967, to seize more of this land.
Right. Exactly. Ranger Biker, JD last night featured Ben Swan reporting Israeli leadership knew Hamas was preparing, knew the attack was coming, knew the concert goers were at risk, and essentially stood down the army to let it happen. Yeah, I know he was supposed to interview Ben the other day, but they had a technical difficulty. I was watching that stream live. Last night I wasn't, so I'll have to catch that on the replay. But thank you, Ranger Biker. Appreciate that. J.K. Michael, can someone tell Donny Douchebag the U.S. does not carpet bomb the area when it infiltrates a target area with civilians? Thank you, J.K. Michael.
We did in Vietnam.
Yes. The state of Israel has a silver check mark in an attempt to discredit the money-grubbing Jew stereotype. That's like the real blue check. Like the silver check is like the old blue check, right? Where you had to earn it. You can't buy a silver check, right? You have to earn the silver check.
Oh, I thought it was a joke. I didn't know there was a new silver check.
No, there is a new silver check. That's it. That's the thing. That's like I think the silver check is the thing that like you can't buy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it's a government thing. I don't know. I'm not sure. Let's see here. His Highness, if there are no innocent civilians, that means Donnie Scumbag Douchebag thinks all. Yes, well, that's what we were saying. Of course, you can't have it both ways, which is why you either have to choose international law or not, right? And you know, like groups have the right, because I see some people saying there's no equation between occupying powers and occupied peoples. And it's true. I mean, when we talk about, you know, any sort of moral distinction, obviously there are major differences there. But in terms of rules of war prohibit targeting of civilians. So you either respect that or you don't. And It's just, this is why I say this is just at the end of the day. If you had to distill this down to one thing, it's just racism. It really just is at its core racism. Anti-Arab racism, because they want the rules of war respected one way but not the other. And how else do you explain that other than you don't think Arab lives matter in the same way that white European lives do? By white European lives, I mean true. Israeli lives. You know what I mean?
That's definitely a dimension, but there is also just do as we say, not as we do, and what applies to our allies does not apply to powers we perceive as hostile or want to present as hostile.
Oh, sure, but the reason he can come on there, like they don't even get into this when it comes to like Saudi Arabia, which would be an example of what you're talking about, a country that is totally inconsistent with our values, but who we are on good terms with, right?
Right.
They don't even get into that. You don't see him come up here and say, "Well, are they really innocent civilians?" This white Jewish guy getting up on TV and saying, "Well, are they like just the bravado with which they say this?" This is what I mean. Like that, just to me, echoes what it must have been like, you know, going to a town hall meeting in, you know, Georgia in, you know, 1951. Like just the total arrogance that comes with a certain power and a certain just what's the word? What's the $100 word that they use there? I forget what it was. But anyway, the preconceived, just reflexive thought that the people you're talking about on the receiving end of your oppressive policies are just not really human beings. Like, that's really what it comes down to. That's why you see that sort of arrogance on display on TV.
Yeah, we got into that a little bit with Bree. That's what you really saw at the douchebag dialogues, and it's a very common formulation of Zionists who don't want to appear to be the monsters that they are. You know, it's the way they educate the children. Right. We have to start there. They educate them to hate Jews and to be anti-Semitic, and oh yeah, well no, what you need to do is to educate these people into realizing that having their land stolen is a good thing and it's just.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Exactly. Skyzar, remember that video of Israeli children singing some pretty nasty, bloody stuff? We'll annihilate everyone in Gaza, etc. I wonder how the apologists still deflected that one. No, they don't. Yeah, no, they just don't bring that up. That just never gets any airtime at all. It's amazing.
Well, when I keep coming back to this because when we have Bree on Sunday, we're going to cover the that panel that she did a little bit, and that is one of the things I really want to hone in on, the idea that the Palestinians are poorly educated, but the Israelis, nah, man. I mean, they're given a top-notch, not at all insanely nationalistic and distorted education.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. We got one more segment for you guys. This is a quick one, but this is something that Russell found on Twitter. Yeah. China, former U.S. diplomat in China. The U.S. must limit China's growth, even if pushing them back to poverty. Interesting. Let's take a look at this video.
The United States must make sure that we do not have a peer competitor for our security. Think about what this means. This is a brutalist philosophy. The proposition is that even if China were to change in some of the ways that proponents of engagement have been said that we hope it changes, even if they just as a thought experiment adapted our Constitution and our laws wholesale, we should still try to limit their growth merely because we shouldn't have a peer competitor. That is the proposition, regardless of beliefs, regardless of people striving for human flourishing along the lines that we have been prescribing to the world for decades. If they actually appear to be succeeding, regardless of their beliefs, we must stop them, even if it means pushing them back toward poverty.
Robert,
have I misunderstood the proposition?
I don't mean this question cynically or sarcastically, but what's wrong with that?
I love that. I love that. I don't mean this cynically or sarcastically, but suck my dick. Yeah.
So this is.
I don't mean this to be offensive, but eat my shit with a spoon. Yeah.
Yeah. This is not just some guy from Daily Wire spouting off. Okay, this is a former U.S. diplomat in China saying even if China adopted all of our values, we would still have a vested interest in keeping them poor in order to avoid economic competition.
Right.
And to really put a button on this whole day, that's pretty much what we did to Russia at the end of the Cold War. We could have brought Russia. There was a moment there where we could have brought Russia into the West, where Russia wanted to join the West, right? Putin asked Clinton if they could join NATO. Right? And Clinton at first was like, well, I'll talk to my people about it. That's an interesting idea. And he did, and they said, fuck no.
Yeah, his people said no. That's the used car salesman says, let me talk to the guy in the back, see if we can work on the price. And then he comes back. Sorry. This is our bottom line right here.
Sorry. And Putin rightly said, well, you say NATO's not about us, but it kind of seems like it's about us.
Right. Yeah.
Right. There's no more Soviet Union. So what is NATO there to protect against, and why can't we join it then? If it's about other threats, if it's not about us. So yeah.
Well, absolutely.
They as at the collapse of the Soviet Union, we tried to make Russia a client state. We sent in Goldman Sachs, and they just raped the country. We talk about Russian election interference. You can look this up. Clinton sent his own people in to get Yeltsin reelected. And that election was so crooked, Chechnya was registered as voting 80% for Yeltsin while they were being bombed. 80% of Chechnya. So this is what we want to do to China. That is, we demonstrated what we will do to a rival power that or a power we perceive as a rival that loses its ability to defend itself. We will go in there and try to give it the full KFC McDonald's treatment, move in our businesses, move in our fast food, move in our culture, and make them a client state. That's what we want to do to China. The idea that China is the threat, when I'm sure our audience has seen the map of our bases around China, and then when China says something hostile, they're portrayed in the Western media as crazy. When they say something hostile about the United States, they're nuts. Look at this. This is a diplomat. What do you think? He's a rogue with this thinking? You think that's not conventional wisdom inside the State Department regarding China?
Yeah, here, let's see this one more time.
Position, regardless of beliefs, regardless of people striving for human flourishing along the lines that we have been prescribing to the world for decades, if they actually appear to be succeeding, regardless of their beliefs, we must stop them, even if it means pushing them back toward poverty.
Robert,
Have I misunderstood the proposition?
I don't mean this question cynically or sarcastically, but what's wrong with that?
What
You're saying even if they liberalize, right? Even if they model their society after ours.
We proved it. That's why I bring up Russia, because that's what Russia was doing. And look what we did to them. That's exactly what we did. We drove them into poverty and tried to extract their wealth through our hedge funds.
Yeah. So very clearly not about that. Very clearly not about that. And then you combine that with the fact that we have, our army bases surrounding them. Yeah. That's going to create a certain dynamic, shall we say.
It's not paranoid if they're really out to get you.
Right. If they're really out to get you. And now you see they are militarily surrounded and economically sabotaged no matter what they do. It's never really about their society. It's never about rendering some sort of philosophical judgment about how other people live. That's just how they package it to us. That's how we are able to.
We don't have a problem with the Saudis.
Exactly. That's how we are able to say that we are great because we are good, right? That's what I believe that was one of the sort of Clinton campaign sort of rhetorical tricks that they played, because Donald Trump said, "Make America great again." And she said, "Well, we are already great. We're great because we're good." Well, great because we're good. And with the way she meant it was, we don't lock immigrants in cages, even though they do.
Right.
But the idea that what makes the United
States
what makes the United States the shining city on the hill is not that we are an economic and military superpower, which is the real reason, but that we are good. We treat our people well. We have a superior way of life. We are an inspiration to the rest of the world about how to live. And out of that virtue, we have established this level of greatness. Well, what an exchange like that proves is no, because even if other countries want in on that, no, we're going to have to sabotage you if you get near us.
Right. And that is exactly what we did upon the collapse of the Soviet Union. We have an example in real time of what we will do with a rival that wants to adopt our values and system of government.
Yes, indeed. All right, May Jess, thanks for the $20. That's kind of you. Can we have on Arnaud Bertrand to talk about China and France, and have on Palestinian comedian Sami Obeid so we can laugh our asses off? I'm familiar with Sammy's comedy. It actually is very funny. He actually is very good.
I mean, I've never seen him on camera. We've shared a lot of Bertrand's stuff.
Yeah, I've never seen him actually talk, but I am familiar with that comic, and he is great. Absolutely. All right, I believe that is everything for the day, which means that's everything for the week. We appreciate you guys very much for being here. Thank you all for hanging out with us this morning. Great pleasure to be here. We will be back on Sunday night at 7 p.m. With Brianna Joy Gray. So that will be a crazy good episode that we'll have for you in just a few days. But we are going to take a couple days break here to gear up for that show. We will be dropping plenty of content on the channel between now and then. We have tons of clips that we have to drop from the live show and these past few streams, so don't worry. You guys will get your Due Dissidence fix if you need it. We are going to be dropping on the channel probably tonight. I'll probably drop it as a premiere tonight, so you guys can all hang out and watch it as a group. The panel discussion from the Jose Vega fundraiser, because we had about a 45 to 50-minute panel with a Q&A with me, Russ, Jose, and Jimmy was on that panel as well. So that'll be fun to drop on the channel. That was a good talk. I'll probably drop that tonight around prime time. So you look forward to that. You guys can all hang out and watch that. And we'll see you back here Sunday night, 7 p.m. Thank you guys very much for being here today. Russell, got any parting words, or are we good?
Stay safe out there, kids.
Stay safe, you crazy kids.
As the cleaning woman on my college dorm used to say at the end of the week, no drinke, no smoke, no screw around.
That's good. Good advice. Good words to live by. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. We'll see you Sunday night. Until then, be safe and be well.
Courage.
Please clap.